Jimmy Becker is the founder of Cost of Living, a website to help families determine the true cost of college and provide transparency into the complex financial aid process. One of his missions is to help families who think they can't afford a top college for their kids by offering the tools and the resources to help students and parents about the financial aid process and to understand the true cost of a college education. To tell us more and to offer some valuable tips, we've invited Jimmy to the show. Welcome to Urban Update. Thanks for coming in, Jimmy Becker.
Thanks very much for having me.
Well, first of all, let's just talk about what inspired you to start this website. I understand it's free. There's no registration or passwords or anything like that.
What inspired us was two things. First, the cost of college is very, very high. It's crazily high. So we wanted to see if we can do anything about that. And secondly, the financial aid process is very complex, almost impossible for most families to understand it in full. So we wanted to create a simpler way for families to navigate through that process.
Now, I guess how can you simplify that?
Well, the way we simplify it is colleges have what we might think of as a list price, what they call the cost of attendance. Most people don't pay that price, but it's difficult to understand what your family's going to pay without doing an awful lot of work, what we often call the net price. So we've created what we call a universal net price calculator that, given the financial status of your family, you can get a pretty good estimate of the price you're going to pay.
Okay. Can you sort of give us some examples, some of this data that you provide for parents, and talk about how you compiled it?
Sure. The way we compile the data is by law, every college has to have what's called a net price calculator on their website. But the challenge with them is that they're incompatible, they're hard to use, they're hard to find. So we've compiled net price data from most colleges and aggregated it in a way that makes it easy to compare.
Now, what about, you talk about, I guess, the tips. What are some of the basic tips that you or things that you're trying to get families and students to realize and remember?
Well, the most important tip for students, for parents it's different. The most important tip I always tell students is overachieve in high school. The most important thing you can do is to do great in high school, and so you want to present yourself as a very special kid, so colleges want you. For parents, that's not what they can do. The most important thing for them to do is to understand in advance a pretty good estimate of what college is going to cost them so they can make good choices with their kids.
What's the difference between, could you maybe talk about the difference between need and merit-based aid?
Sure. It's a complex process, as I said. So need-based aid is aid that colleges offer you strictly based on the financial need of your family. So you fill out a FAFSA form. It asks you a lot of questions about your family income and assets, and it determines what it believes is your family's need. So need-based aid is what a college awards you based on that family need. Merit-based aid is different. Colleges award merit-based aid for whatever reasons they want to attract students that they believe are special and are really going to raise up the student body in their school, or might increase where they stand in the college rankings. So merit aid is offered to students for whatever criteria they want, and it does not have to do with financial need at all.
Now, we've heard a lot of many stories about the student debt crisis, students over borrowing and being stuck with that huge bill after they get out of school. How does one avoid being in that situation down the road? Right.
As I said earlier, that's one of the reasons we started the website. So the easiest and best advice on how not to find yourself with a student loan crisis after you graduate is not to overborrow when you go to college. Now, that's easy to say, and it's hard for a teenager to understand because taking out loans are abstract to most 17-year-olds when they're thinking about college. So the best advice I give is, if you can, do not borrow more than the federal student loan maximum amount. So the federal government offers student loans. They're sometimes known as Stafford loans. but there's a fairly low limit on those. It's about $28,000 over the 4 years of college. Those loans are very safe to borrow because there's what's known as income-based repayment, where the repayment amount, the monthly payment you make, is tied to your income when you work after college. And if your income goes up, the payment goes up, but if your income goes down, the payment goes down. And any remaining balance is written off after 10 or 20 years. But that repayment is only available for federal student loans. So the best advice is don't borrow private loans beyond those, because then you can get into trouble.
Oftentimes the financial aid, they'll say we have financial aid, colleges will say this, and then they turn around and say part of that is a loan. I mean, is a loan really financial aid? I mean, in my mind, it's not.
So that's a great question. So I don't think a student loan is any more financial aid than your mortgage or your car loan. Would you consider those to be financial aid? I don't. So if you don't think your mortgage or your car loan is financial aid, then I wouldn't think student loans are either.
And you can get out of your mortgage or your car loan easier than you can get out of your student financial aid, can't you?
Very good point. You cannot get out of student loans at all.
Very quickly, we've got this on the screen here.
Sure.
Financial tips. Private colleges may be less costly. Out-of-state universities are more costly. Maximize federal student loans first. Loans are not grants. Anything else in our remaining moments here that you want to leave with our viewers?
No, I think we talked about some of those. The only thing I'd add about the private colleges is that's counterintuitive to some people. Often the private colleges are more generous with the financial aid they offer, so don't assume your state university is going to be a better bargain than a private college.
Okay, and look nationwide, of course. Jimmy Becker, thanks for coming in, and thanks for all that great information, and good luck to all you students and parents out there trying to get your families through college. Well, that's it for this edition of Urban Update, but before we say goodbye, a quick shout out to Rich Salcedo of Swampscott, Mass., a faithful Urban Update viewer. For the entire team here at Urban Update, I'm Byron Barnett. Have a great Sunday, everyone.